At the moment in the 80s, Robert Parker was someone. And in 95, I decided to send him 3 Montevetrano, different vintages. And I was asking him what to think about, because many people, many friends are saying it's a wonderful wine. Please help me to understand what I have to do of my life, to go on continuing in Rome with a photo or to come back here. And he has written something that decided for my life. He was writing Montevetrano, Sassicaia of the South. It was beautiful to read, but you can't imagine what was happening after.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to Campania to conclude my special sub-series that focuses on this beautiful southern Italian region, its wines, gastronomy, and things to see and do. Today we travel to the province of Salerno, to the Montepicentini Regional Park, to visit one of Campania's iconic wine estates and the source of a celebrated wine not made from the region's autochthonous grape varieties, but from international, a true super Campania wine, Montevetrano, which stands alongside the greatest wines of Italy. My guests today are Silvia Imparato, the founder and owner of Montevetrano, and Gaia Marano, her daughter. Silvia and Gaia, thank you so much for being my guest today. How are you both?
Very fine. Thank you. And thank you to be hosting with you. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody.
It's a real pleasure to have you with us. What I'm going to ask you, first of all, is to take us to the Montepicentini Regional Park, to San Cipriano Picentino, to describe this southern province of Campania. And just tell us a little bit in general about the province of Salerno.
So Montevetrano is very close to Salerno, to the town of Salerno. We are 15 minutes by car, and it's really in the between the Amalfitan coast and Paestum, the ancient sites, archaeological sites of Magna Graecia, and where are temples of ancient Greek. And we are 5 kilometers far from the sea, and the property is on quite small hill. We are like 100 meters, 120 meters above the sea level. And we are surrounded by the Montepicentini that makes like a crown around our property, and this allows to have a very special climate that allows to have quite a difference between temperatures in days and nights. So we have quite hot days during summer, but even if it's hot during the day, the evening is always quite fresh and much better than in town.
Okay, so are you overlooking the sea then? Can you see the sea from this hill?
Yes, quite far, but we see the sea, of course. Yes, we have 5 kilometers, and yeah.
Okay, so really a reminder that this is an ancient wineland. The ruins of this great civilization at Paestum, the beautiful Doric Greek temples, but also a reminder to your estate of the Spanish presence in southern Italy, because you're on a property that goes back to the Borboni. Is that right? To the Spanish Bourbons?
Actually, our property belonged to the Borbone, and 18th century was part of the, I don't know the exact name in English, but was a hunting house, hunting property of Borbone. And then my grandparents bought it in the 40s just before the World War.
Okay, so the property was in your family from the 40s, but Silvia, your project began, was it in the 80s? Can you tell us the Montevetrano story then?
I have really loved Montevetrano from the beginning of my life. What I mean is that I come from a very severe family, but when we could be in a country house here, we were free to do everything to go in the cellar. That perhaps had a meaning to the destiny of my life. So many years after, I was living in Rome and I was photographer. And during a portrait with an American person, he was speaking about his passion for wine. In that moment, I was imagining my life in Montevetrano making wine. So I don't remember your first question.
Well, really about the story. So the farm then, as it was, that was your family that you grew up on, was already making wine then. There were vines on the estate, but you took a different direction.
Yes, there were wines, as there were wines in Campania many often because farmers were making wine, but in all a different way of what we are used now. What I mean, they were making wine with for quantity, not quality. So there was a completely other vision.
Yeah, I can understand that, this change of mentality, this change of looking to make a quality wine. But you were a real pioneer, though, because in the early 80s, this was not something that was being done in Campania widely.
Yes, there was Mastro Berardino, for example, but it was the only one because there were many different little wines. But as I could tell before, it was for quantity wines.
Yes, of course.
It was very fascinating for me. When I was in Rome, I had many friends that were used to drink really great wines like Italian, but Italian were only Tuscany and Piemonte. And after that, they were used to drink all the greatest wines in the world. I was very lucky to be in that group because I have the possibility to drink Petrus or Cheval Blanc or so many Haut-Brion, but even Sassicaia and so many wines at the moment. And this was a big enthusiasm for me because there were big passionate people and they were explaining even the work that there was around this kind of wines, what it means to make qualities. And this was so fascinating that I was dreaming about it. What I mean is that the history of Montevetrano, of Borbone, of my loved grandparents was something that was beautiful, but it was the past. So it was so important for me to have the responsibility, the richness of my past, but using it possibly for a present that was looking to the future. And I have to tell that I think I arrived to it not only for my merito, but even because in my group of friends there was Riccardo Cotarella, that now is a very famous person. It was not at the moment. And friends so passionate. The freedom to share this passion, it was a special time that has permitted me this. And after that, that I have worked with people, with the group with whom I've always worked that are really very different. They come from different culture. Mimi is coming from Montevetrano. The father and the grandfather were working in Montevetrano. So the families were used to live here. So they were very important to understand how the terroir here was and what was the real story about terroir. And after that, Riccardo Cotarella, that has always been our winemakers, and we always thank him. And after that, the group, the people we do my work, and after that, the big surprise of Gaia, that is my daughter, and she was used to work in a big fashion Dolce Gabbana, and she had a very important situation there, and it was surprising when she asked me in COVID time that she was here. She asked me if she could work with us.
That's a wonderful story of how you were inspired by the great wines from Tuscany, from Piedmont, but also from France, from Bordeaux, wines that you enjoyed drinking, had the chance to drink, and it inspired you to return to your home, your ancestral home, where your grandparents have been, and to create not ordinary wine, but to create a great wine. That was central to the project then, Silvia. You wanted to make a wine that could stand alongside some of these beautiful and great wines that you had tasted.
See.
And Silvia, was it your idea and in discussion with Riccardo then to concentrate on bringing in, which would have been a real innovation in the 1980s, Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot alongside Aglianico?
The beginning of the story was that I never could imagine to really make a wine for a market. I was friend of Riccardo, and we were just joking in some way. What I mean is that was Riccardo and the other friends with whom I was sharing this passion, and it was amazing to imagine to make a great wine. When he understood that I really wanted to go on, he was a little bit thinking about what are we doing here in the south of Campania? And after that, he understood that it was really a special option to decide or not for a new way of challenge, but with good possibilities to be something really extraordinary. So it was like that. Now Campania, as you well know, has many different excellent wines, but I think that we really have opened the light on Campania, because Campania was, one fantastic region, pizza, pomodori, mandolino, music, sea. No, it's not only that. Campania is a great region with many, many incredible, extraordinary things like history, beauty, and the striking contrast between the sea and the mountains that offer a truly solid gastronomic culture. So for me, was also very amusing at the beginning, but now is a passion to imagine Montevetrano and after core, that, after we have made core, mixed with different meals that they exalt each other as fantastico, fantastico.
Okay, and you had been living in Rome as a photographer.
See.
Did you move back to the country and dedicate yourself?
At the beginning, I was sure that it was only a hobby, but after a little bit, I decided this is not a hobby. This is the possibility to really arrive to what I was dreaming. And it's much more than a dream. It's a big work I have to do. After that, Robert Parker, that at the moment was one of the very famous. Now there are many different, but at the moment in the 80s, Robert Parker was someone. And in 95, I decided to send him 3 Montevetrano, different vintages. The first, that was little number of bottles, 91, then 92 and 93. And I was asking him what to think about, because many people, many friends are saying it's a wonderful wine. Please help me to understand what I have to do of my life, to go on continuing in Rome with a photo or to come back here. And he has written something that decided for my life. He was writing Montevetrano, Sassicaia of the South. It was beautiful to read, but you can't imagine what was happening after. I had people here that wanted this wine. It was a revolution.
At the moment with vintage 93, we were making 3,000 bottles. So the quantity was very little. And after this article by Robert Parker, this was happening just before Vinitaly. And with this article, everybody was looking for this wine, and they thought that the fact that it was not available was a marketing strategy, but in reality, we didn't have the wine, we didn't have enough quantity, enough bottles. So late on the end of the 90s, beginning of 2000, we arrived to produce around 30,000 bottles of Montevetrano. Nowadays, we are reducing the quantity and we are about 20,000 bottles of Montevetrano, but we add two other wines that are the core.
Okay, well, we'll talk about these wines in a minute. But I'm fascinated by this story, Silvia, because in 1983, we're talking about, 10 years after Tignanello and Sassicaia had really awakened the world to the potential for Italian wines to stand alongside the greatest in the world. And you in Campania had that vision then to really be part of what we call the renaissance of Italian wine, as Italian wine from ancient lands where grapes had been cultivated by the Greeks 2,500 years earlier. But you saw that potential for wines from your home, from where you spent time with your grandparents, to make truly great wine. So it's an incredible vision.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's talk then in general about the philosophy at Montevetrano. And I'd like to then touch on the Core Bianco and the Core Rosso before we talk about Montevetrano.
I think that the philosophy of Montevetrano, the first point of philosophy is the respect. So that means in terms of respect of nature and respect of people with whom we are working, but also respect for our clients. So our goal is always to offer quality, and the quality of our wines that in 30 years of production, I think you can feel it in every vintage. Last year, with vintage 2021, we celebrated our 30th anniversary, and we had a tasting with Riccardo Cotarella of every vintage from 91 till 2021, and there was no vintage that was already over. I mean that every vintage has its own characteristic, but every vintage was still in good health and absolutely drinkable and pleasable. So I don't know if we can talk about the philosophy of Montevetrano, but I think that really there is an harmony between it's a very small group because we are 5 persons now that I joined the company, but before there were only 4 persons. So there is a very strict relationship among us. And I think that once that you come in Montevetrano, you can really feel the atmosphere that there's between us and that we love to share with everybody who's coming to drink our wines and to share what we are doing. So I think that philosophy really respect and quality. What
There is
maybe you want to add something?
No, I think I'm Silvia. I think there is another one very important for me. You were speaking about vision. There is always vision. I have always had the vision for something open, from what you can arrive more, respectful, but more and larger. And now it's not that we are in a world that is changing. We are in a changed world. So I am very attracted for all different situations. I always look to others that I can't share for my mentality, but it's always interesting. Now we are in the no alcoholic wine, for example. In last week in Italy, I wanted to taste them. I don't like. In the meantime, I'm fond of Riesling, so I went to Germany and so on, to the differences, to what something can arrive to and can be represented. So this is the basis of the philosophy.
I guess then that openness that you talk about, that openness of trying new things, is what would have led you to plant Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot in Campania. Because, as I say, that was something just not being done and still not being done that much.
I have to tell you that Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot were coming out from a dinner where we were all a little bit drunk because we were drinking 8 great wines. I mean, the best wines in the world. And we were a little bit really excited, a little bit drunk, and my voice was saying, yes, they're fantastic wines, but if you come, my friends, with me in Montevetrano, we can do with Aglianico something like. Of course, I was out of mind, but it was really a joke that was beginning, grafting on the old plants some Cabernet Sauvignon, and after thanking Riccardo, that was fond at the time of Merlot, a little bit of Merlot. Then we went on, as I told you, making this wine for a market. And that is the real story. But this wine was bought from people that was used to drink those great wines. That means that I was not out of mind, that Campania is not only pizza and tomatoes, Campania is in the middle of a great world that was changing then, that is changing now, and many frontiers were open. So, what does it mean? I am proud to have opened the light on Campania. I am proud of the Aglianico. I am proud of Falanghina. I am proud of Coda di Volpe and Pallagrello. But this does not mean that only if you make that in that way, you make great wines. I have the experience that my wines of Campania, under this sky of Campania, in the terroir of Campania, has won the market of all the world. So, what does it mean? Open mind, open to the big quality everyone has to desire for what he can express. This is my philosophy. This is my way to share, looking to the others. When I had to enter in Sweden or Spain or in Germany, I was not entering, I was looking to their culture. If I could permit to my product to enter there. So we are simple person that are living in a big world open.
Okay, well, it's a beautiful philosophy, and I think that's very important to understand that openness to your approach, which is what was behind Montevetrano. Can we turn now, Gaia, perhaps to discussing the two Core wines, the Core Bianco and Core Rosso, and then we'll talk about Montevetrano.
Core in Napolitan means love. The word, it means literally hurt, but it means love. Love not firstly for your lover or your husband or wife, but love in general. So also for your best friend. And it's like in the mood for love. So there are some expressions like core mio, that means how much I care to you, or stiamo core a core, let's stay very closely together. And we decided this name for a new wine that was conceived and thought for young person that could afford the quality of Montevetrano with a more affordable price. So we were really thinking about a young people that could get close to the wine, not knowing, not having the knowledge to appreciate an aging wine, or that could not be frightened by
Sure.
the fame of a big wine like Montevetrano was at the moment. First vintage of Core, we started with the red, that is an Aglianico 100%. First vintage was 2011 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Montevetrano. But to having an Aglianico 100% was also a dream of my mother, to also express more directly the region, the expression of Campania, because Aglianico is one of the grape typical of Campania. And after Core Rosso, we came out with Core Bianco. In 2015 was first vintage released, and Core Bianco is a blend of Fiano and Greco. Fiano and Greco, you know, that are also to other typical grapes of Campania. But at the moment that we made this wine, it was not so common to have the two of them blended together. It was much more common to have either Fiano, either Greco. The thought was to have the characteristic of the two grapes mixed together to have a great wine, a very pleasant wine. So we have the florals of Fiano and also the longevity that allows Fiano, together with the straightness of Greco and the minerality of Greco. And it came out a very, very, very good wine in our opinion. But both of them are two wines very appreciated. And when I joined the winery like 5 years ago, we decided that I could focus on Core. This because the two Core for the first years were a bit like suffering the presence of Montevetrano. And so the red was not really taken in consideration because there was the big brother of Montevetrano. And the white, the public, the owner of restaurant, the sommelier, they didn't believe in this wine. Also because, or maybe because, the grape of both the Core are not grown in our property. So when we decided to make this wine, my mother together with Riccardo were looking for the best part of the region of Campania where the grapes could express at their best the quality to have these wines. So the grapes of Core comes from Sannio, that is in another part of Campania that is close to Benevento. The vines are in a hill a bit higher than the ones they are in Montevetrano, because over there we have like 250 meters and it's an internal part of the region, so they are not close to the sea. It's a fresher area. And then we bottled. Both the harvest and the vinification is always supervised by Riccardo Cotarella, and then we bottled these two wines at Montevetrano to close the process and to grant the quality of what we are offering. That's why we can have the two wines at a more affordable price compared to Montevetrano.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. I haven't tasted Core Bianco or Core
You have
Rosso,
to.
but I have tasted Montevetrano, which is a magnificent one. I tasted it most recently at Opera Wine,
Yeah.
which I think was the 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
2021.
Really, really beautiful. I was actually bowled over by it. Certainly, yes, the Cabernet, the color, the power, the distinctiveness of Cabernet, Merlot offering some sweeter tannins, very beautiful, but also that Aglianico, making this a wine that really was unique to your territory. Tell us a little bit, Silvia, about Montevetrano.
Well, the wine itself is something that really moves me in my emotion very, very much, always. Because I feel this thing like a responsibility it means in my life. For me, this story is the story of my vision of the world. There is no truth at all, never. There are only honorable compromises. What I mean is that every vintage, every new vintage, I put the wine in 5 different glasses. And in reality, if I didn't know it was the same wine, sometimes I could think there were different wines. As you well know, if you're happy or unhappy, the thing change. If you have eaten an egg or an olive or a coffee, it change. So it is a question of really to ask oneself what you think about, what is your taste, what is your vision. Only knowing this, you can propose someone else. And this is Montevetrano for me. When I was photographer, I have made different reportage, but my difficulty was the word elegance, because for me, elegance is really a balance, a very difficult balance. And Montevetrano, I've always asked Riccardo, that is something like a brother for me, had big passions with me, to arrive to make an elegant wine. Elegant means balance. Sometimes it arrives, sometimes another not, but it represents life, the season, sometimes sweeter, sometimes with accents. It is the wine of this area. It is the wine of people like not only me, but our group. We have always tried to make the best to represent our condition, our situation.
Okay, and that's a beautiful description of creating something, as we've spoken, within your vision, but this quest for elegance and balance. And I know that Riccardo, I've tasted his own Montiano, for example,
Sì,
and beautiful,
sì,
beautiful wines that, again, reflect terroir, territory, but also have that balance. He is truly a great winemaker and a great partnership for you. Silvia, one thing you said at the beginning was that Campania has so much history, but also
sure,
this great gastronomic culture. And it's a
sure.
culture. It's not just one or two foods, but it's part of life. Can you tell us a little bit about some important local foods or foods from the province of Salerno or
Sure.
from Campania as a whole, and how they pair both with Montevetrano, but also with Core?
For the gastronomic culture, I can tell you that in Campania, we can begin to see the bakeries of the highest level. That is not common. You can go in Rome, in other countries. It's not so common. But after that, what I love, for example, for Montevetrano is to offer it with a goat kid. That I have an ancient receipt of my grandmother. Receipt?
Recipe.
Recipe, excuse me. That is many onions, founded onions that make it sweet and with no sense of rustic. After that, there are so many. Gaia, for example, for Core Bianco, you made something incredible things.
Oh yeah, Core Bianco goes very well, pairs very well with goat cheese that we offer with lemon zest grated and peppers. Or also we have a lot of tree lemon here. So what I like to do is to have the smoked provola. Provola,
Okay,
I
yeah.
think it's the same. Smoked
Mm-hmm.
provola put on the lemon leaves and put just 2 minutes in the oven. And with Core Bianco, this is very, very nice. But Montevetrano, Mama, you offered also once with fried anchovies.
Sure,
That was during the summer. We used to have it a little bit cool and with fried
fried anchovy.
anchovies or
But even with tarbot, I
yeah.
mean with some kind of fishes.
Yeah. And the
Oh,
Core Rosso di Aglianico, it's a bit different from the traditional Aglianico. Who experienced Aglianico sometimes thinks about a very strong wine with quite aggressive tannins. Our Core, our Aglianico, we asked to work in vinification to have it to keep tannins smooth and velvety, like to have a consistency with the characteristic of Montevetrano. So that is always this elegance in terms of tannins. And this we realized the same also in Core. And Core, of course, with grilled barbecue, it's very good, but also Core
Sausages.
we had with octopus, a grilled octopus. I'm now thinking about summer dishes because we are in the summer, but also with tomato sauce with tuna fish. We had pasta made with this sauce, and Core Rosso was really, really great.
those are wonderful, wonderful flavors you're conjuring up. I'm liking that idea of the slow cooked onions with the kid.
Yeah.
So is that a sort of Genovese made with goat?
Sì,
Yeah.
sì,
Slow cooking in that.
sì.
And I can imagine that with Montevetrano would be wonderful. Final question for you both. Our listeners are located all around the world, and I'm sure they will be eager to discover more about Montevetrano. Can they visit you?
Sure, with pleasure. It is some that I like more of everything. Certo.
Okay, and what would you offer in wine hospitality?
We have a tasting. We do not have and hospitality, not us, but my cousin that is just in front of our property has a small agriturismo. They're very nice. They have 5 rooms. So it's quite difficult to find place, but it's very nice. But for people who are coming to taste our wines, of course, we have a visit and a walk in the vineyards and visit in the cellar. And then we have a tasting. Usually we offer the current vintage and an old vintage of Montevetrano and the 2 core. But very often we open new bottles.
Very
So we like very much to share our wines with people. So normally on our website, it's written that a visit lasts 2 hours, but usually they stay like 4 hours and a half, and it's fun and it's nice.
Yes.
So everybody is welcome. Of course, you have to reserve by phone or by email to come to visit us because we are not always there.
I'm sure that our listeners will be hoping to find a way to visit you. I myself would love to do that.
Yeah, we are waiting for you.
Yes, we are waiting for.
I shall definitely be trying to visit you.
Evviva.
Especially because you haven't tasted the core yet.
No, not yet, but I look forward to that. Silvia and Gaia, it's been a real pleasure meeting you here today, talking about Silvia, about your vision in the 80s to produce a great wine from Campania, succeeding in doing that, a wine that all of the guidebooks rank at the highest level. As I say, I tasted at Opera Wine, which was 130 wines that this Wine Spectator chose as the greatest Italian wines. So you were in very good company there. And I'm also very happy that this talk concludes our special sub-series on Campania. We visited each of the 5 provinces. I've spoken to people from each of the 5 provinces. And I think our listeners through this sub-series will gain an idea of Campania as much more than Naples, a wonderful city that I adore visiting, or the Amalfi Coast. Such a world of different places in the 5 provinces, great varieties that are native, that are tasted only here when one visits often. Sometimes they're not found outside of Campania, as well as concluding with Montevetrano, your story, and also the story of a great wine that has conquered the world, that goes around the world and is found on the wine lists of the best restaurants in the world. So it's been a great journey for me of these different episodes, but wonderful to finish here at Montevetrano. So thank you so much for joining us today.
So thank you to you. It was a pleasure.
Thank
Grazie.
you. Great pleasure. And we're looking forward to hear and to hear what we said.
We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.